There's a moment many people describe almost in the same way. Nothing bad has happened, no arguments or betrayals. You're with your partner, relaxed, connected and present. The relationship feels safe in that quiet, ordinary way that only comes when you truly trust someone. And then something small enters the conversation. A detail, a memory, a reference to a time before you even existed in their life. And your body reacts, not dramatically or explosively, but enough that you can feel it. A tightness in your chest, a subtle pull backwards, as if your nervous system just took half a step back from someone you were leaning towards just a second ago. What makes this moment so unsettling isn't the feeling itself, it's the confusion that follows it. Because you know rationally that nothing bad has happened, you know that your partner hasn't done anything wrong, you know their past doesn't cancel the connection you're building now, and yet something inside you feels disturbed. The contradiction, wanting closeness while feeling distance at the same time, is often where retroactive jealousy begins. Not as jealousy in the classical sense, not as anger, control or judgment, but as a loss of internal safety you didn't choose and don't yet understand. Many people assume retroactive jealousy is simply about insecurity or comparison. Sometimes it is, but very often it's driven by something quieter and deeper. It's driven by how your mind believes things should be. We all carry internal frameworks about intimacy, sex, commitment, and meaning. These frameworks aren't always conscious, and they're not necessarily morally judgments. They're more like internal maps. Expectations form throughout experience, culture, relationship, and personal values. And for some people, intimacy has always been closely tied to emotional closeness, intention, and depth. Sex has meaning because of the bond attached to it. Casual encounters never felt quite right, not because they were wrong, but because they didn't align with how that person experienced connection. Now imagine discovering that the person you love once lived a very different life. Nothing unethical happened, no promises were broken, no apologies required, but internally something doesn't line up. And when the brain senses a mismatch between expectations and reality, it doesn't calmly reflect on it, it reacts. This is an important point to slow down on. Retroactive jealousy is rarely about the past itself. It's about what the past seems to imply, about compatibility, about values, and what kind of relationship this actually is. The brain is constantly trying to predict safety. It builds an internal model of who your partner is and what they represent, what being close to them means, and what kind of future feels possible with them. When new information doesn't fit into this model, the brain doesn't simply update it. It hesitates, it scans, it asks, did I misunderstand something important? And when the question doesn't get a clear answer, the nervous system responds with discomfort, sometimes with anxiety, sometimes with doubt, sometimes with a subtle sense of aversion, a feeling of this doesn't quite fit, even when you wish it did. The reaction isn't about blame, it's about cohesion. This is where the internal conflict starts to intensify. One part of you wants to stay close. You care about your partner. You feel the love, traction, and commitment. You don't want this feeling to exist at all. Another part of you wants certainty. It wants the discomfort to make sense. So the mind starts looking for meaning. What does this say about them? What does it say about us? And what does it say about me? And when the questions don't settle, the mind often shifts into proof-seeking. Not because it wants to accuse your partner, but because it wants to feel relief. And here's how that can play out. Let's say somewhere deep down, you hold the belief that people with many sexual partners are less reliable in long-term relationships. You might not even endorse the belief consciously, you might not want to believe it at all, but once it's activated, it starts scanning reality. A phone turned face down suddenly stands out. A delayed reply feels heavier than it used to. A change in routine gets noticed. You might find yourself checking things you never checked before, reading into tones, replaying conversations, looking for patterns that weren't relevant a month ago. Not because your partner is doing anything suspicious, but because your mind is trying to confirm a story that would justify your unease. If I can prove this is a risk, the mind thinks, then I'm not wrong for feeling this way. And from the outside, this can look like control, but from the inside, it feels like self-protection. But the cost is high, because a relationship can't grow in an atmosphere where one person feels investigated and the other one feels constantly on guard. The person on the receiving end often feels just as confused. They may feel judged for a version of themselves that no longer exists. They may feel like reassurance never lands, no matter how honest they are. They may even begin to feel watched instead of chosen. And slowly, even though neither person intended harm, the relationship tightens. Not because of the past, but because of what the past has come to represent. It's important to say this clearly. Retroactive jealousy doesn't mean your partner is unsafe. And it doesn't mean that you are broken, controlling, or judgmental. It exists because humans care deeply about attachment, meaning, and alignment. When something matters, the brain becomes sensitive. When uncertainty appears around something important, the brain doesn't prioritize fairness, it prioritizes risk reduction. Differences can feel like a danger before it feels like complexity. That doesn't necessarily make the reaction true, but it makes it human. This is also why arguing with the thoughts rarely works. You can remind yourself that the past is over. You can list reasons for why your partner is trustworthy now. You can logically disarm every fear, and still the feeling persists. Because this reaction doesn't live in the part of the brain that responds to arguments. It lives in the part that responds to feeling safety. What actually helps is learning to separate value differences from actual risk. Not every misalignment is a warning, and not every uncomfortable feeling is a message to act. Sometimes it's simply the discomfort of realizing that two people arrive at the same relationship through very different paths. When couples begin to understand that retroactive jealousy is in the way, something shifts. Conversations move away from interrogation and defense, and they start to focus on the present-day safety, boundaries, and reassurance that actually lands. Instead of debating the past, they ask, what do we need to do to feel safe together? And often that is when the intensity softens. Not because the past disappears, but because it no longer needs to be proven, justified, or punished. If you recognize yourself in this experience, there's something important to hold on to. Struggling with retroactive jealousy doesn't make you weak, and having a past doesn't make someone unworthy or unsafe. The conflict exists because intimacy asks of us to sit with differences without turning it into danger, and that's not easy. But learning to do it, learning to tolerate uncertainty without converting it into control, is often what allows a relationship to stop tightening and start deepening. Because feeling unsettled doesn't mean you uncover the truth. It means something inside you is just trying to understand how to stay close to someone who is real, complex, and human. And that learning process, uncomfortable as it is oftentimes where real intimacy begins.